FTE, the
And
student.
yeah, the FTE, right?
Correct.
Okay, not like the monthly.
No, so
Right.
what I do is I'll look at each month and what is the average for the year, and then kind of look at previous year, what's the estimate over the rest of the year. This is kind of what I'm expecting we will have by the end of the year in our average for the whole year, exactly.
Perfect, okay, I just wanted to make sure, cause
Yep.
then when we're looking at the chart, we're looking at month, like to the,
Correct.
okay.
You're looking at what we've seen to the month, like December through December, but the average is what I'm kind of estimating will be, what I'm speaking to in the summary is what I think it's gonna be for, by the end of the year.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions regarding the budget status report for November or December? We'll move on then to the budget process for the development of the 2024-2025 budget. I think as most board directors are aware and those in the audience are aware, pretty much as soon as we start the current school year, we begin planning for the subsequent school year. And about this time of year, we begin to outline the process by which we'll work with the board to develop and propose a recommended budget for adoption by the board by the end of August, which is the deadline that is required. So Mike's put together an estimated timeline along with some considerations, and are there any questions regarding this timeline or this set of considerations?
Just a comment, I think that timeline, I'm very happy with the timeline. I think it's pretty generous. It gives a lot of time for review and questions. So, and I know on a month-to-month basis, I'll just speak for myself, I feel pretty informed. I appreciate the updates, but I think this is a good timeline that'll help us come up with a pretty thorough budget. Thank you.
Yeah, you just kind of briefly mentioned it, but I was gonna ask to highlight, we do have a legal RCW required deadline that we have to have this budget in by, and that is
August 31st.
August 31st. So, these aren't arbitrary dates. It's driven by the law. We have to have it, and if we don't have our budget in by the 31st, there are pretty dire consequences on the district, so. That is the deadline we are working to.
Right, and the commentary I would add to that, which we are always juggling every year, is we've got a host of timelines we're required with staff notification for various things that might need to happen. We're also usually tracking with the legislature, and anything that the legislature enacts that could have budgetary knock-on impact, we need to make sure we have time to figure that out and know what is happening. And then also along the way, there's kind of a check-in date in mid-July where we submit a draft of the budget at that point in time to the ESD for their review as well. So there are a number of benchmarks, pause points, review points, discussion points for the board along the way. As we've done in the years prior, we'll continue to pretty much have a monthly check-in with the board about where we are with the process and keep you apprised and updated and informed about that process. And I know Mike is looking to get the finance committee wrapped around again and involved in the work as we move deeper into the spring months as well. And we have a little bit more input and knowledge about where we're headed for next year. Did I forget anything?
No, I agree. The two dates, July 10th is one of the dates that we have to have a budget available to the community and to the ESD, as Dr. Evans mentioned, and then the 31st. So, yeah, and yeah, there'll be a lot of work. We're still pretty early because we obviously have to wait for the legislature to see what happens with them, but we will communicate throughout, absolutely.
Right, so there's a no later than date that we have to meet, and there's reasons not to do this too early.
Correct.
So that's
Exactly.
That's what I wanted to highlight.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next management report item is the enrollment projection report, and again, this is a collaborative effort between our human resources office and the budget office, our finance office, and this is our first look at where we're going with enrollment. And so are there questions about this particular report from the board?
No, it did just remind me though, there's another potential bill, or discussion at least about trying to get an increased MSOC allocation, to more accurately reflect what our costs are. So, that had just come out as something to look at, so I need to look at it. I haven't had a chance. And then just, I always appreciate that you all do the work to make this a conservative estimate of enrollment. I remember before I was on the board where the district did not budget conservatively, did not estimate conservatively on enrollment, and then had to cut. And I've appreciated ever since being on the board that we don't do that. We go a little low, and then if it's higher, happy, versus being high and having to cut. So I appreciate that approach that we've taken for as long as I remember.
Thanks, Mike. The next item is the Panorama Survey Results Report, and I'm probably gonna go ahead and have Gwen and Jeremy come on down, just in case there are questions, because I anticipate they're probably will be able to. So, this is our third year implementing Panorama surveys. We administer the survey to students, staff, and families. We collect the data. We have produced year over year and administration over administration data points. We did not include all of the questions in this summary report. We've included questions that speak to specifically strategic plan items, items that see noted gains or drops, and then anything that's kind of pointing to some consistency in terms of delivery. And Jeremy's put this together, and I just want to give him a quick thanks for the hard work, both in leading the effort with the Panorama Survey Administration, which is like herding a lot of cats to get it done every time. But then also for crunching the data and then I think putting it forward in a pretty user-friendly format for review. So thanks, Jeremy, for that. Are there any questions for me or Jeremy or Gwen?
I have one question. Did 100% of the kids fill out the form, the survey?
No. If you scroll down a little bit, there we start with the response rates. And so go down a little bit more for us, Corey. You can see here the response rates tracking from our last 3 collections. The celebration here is we did have the highest response rates this round than we've ever had before. So you can see students, we were at 79%, staff, we got up to 89%, and then families, our highest yet, which was 24%. The family number is the one that we're constantly revisiting and finding out how can we up those, and this year with the introduction of Parent Square, we think that Parent Square did play a role in helping get that number higher, because I was able to send out reminders that they weren't coming from Panorama, they were coming from North Kitsap. Because the survey platform will send reminders to families, but it comes from Panorama, so families may think it's spam or something that they just need to delete.
Well, yeah, I just have some comments and maybe there might be a question in there too, but again, thank you for putting it together in this format. That is just really wonderful to go through for us to get, I mean, I think a full picture of the survey results. And I mean, this was the first thing that jumped out, that we had the highest response rate yet. And I just think that's really positive, you know, building on every year. And definitely families, trying to get more families to fill out. But I do think that the Parent Square is huge. I mean, as a parent, I know, I mean, I've loved Parent Square. And I also noticed the 2 additional metrics that were added about access to a trusted adult and also access to academic interventions, which I think is wonderful. So those were new, correct, in this?
Yeah, so last year we introduced the strategic plan core values section, but we recognized that there were still some metrics in the strategic plan that we were having a hard time quantifying, and Panorama gave us that opportunity, so we pretty much just took the metrics from the goals and made that the question. So that way we now have a very direct point we can go to for both elementary and secondary students, where they're telling us, do you believe you have early access to intervention? And they're telling us, yes, I have at least one trusted adult within the school building. And so that information is really good for the system, so it'll be interesting to see in our April collection when we do our you'll get the June report, we're hoping to see that dial move on that one, since we now can measure it.
So are the 5 questions that we see, are those the only 5 questions that the kids and staff answer?
No, so the way, it just depends on the topic. So there's a variety of questions. I think our elementary kids are at about 27 questions. Our secondary, I think, is around 33, and our staff's around 33. And so it covers a lot of different topics. We have the strategic plan core value, we have educating all students, that's gonna be in our staff, school climate that covers everybody. And then we have learning strategies that we gather information from the kids on, teaching efficacy from both the kids and the parents or teachers. And so it's a whole lot of getting all the information and then trying to find out what that story is. And as Dr. Evans said, we don't, like, not every question is listed here because some of the questions we keep in there so we can get national benchmarking, but it may not be something that aligns with really what we're specifically focusing on. But if we change any of Panorama's topics, we lose national benchmarking. So that's why we don't take those questions out.
And I noticed too that we had the breakdown with classified and certificated, and that's new this go, which was really great to see that.
Yes,
That
that has been a labor of, I don't know if love's the right word, but so one of the adventure with Panorama and sort of what it's helped us do is it's helped us really clean up our data systems within Skyward. And so one thing we noticed is we were having a really hard time getting the surveys just to the staff members that the questions would apply to. Like a bus driver doesn't need a question about the learning strategy in the classroom. And so through working with our student records team and then the integration specialist, I gotta give a big shout out to Patrick Mace on our team. He does amazing things with our data cleanup. And so through that, we were able to finally identify, okay, these are the staff codes that we wanna make sure these questions apply to. So that's the classified goes to our building located PSE members, so office managers, secretaries, building techs fall into that category. And then the certificated are all of our teachers and certificated administrators. And the reason we wanted to do that is because we want to get a clear picture of what is everyone's experience. And when it was all grouped together, it was really, I couldn't disaggregate it. It wasn't possible, whereas at least now we can start to be like, this population has this need, this one has this need, and provide more targeted supports based on what each population is requesting and letting us know.
I think that's awesome. Wow, well done, and to the team. My only other thing I had, was this the first time too that all 4 populations we asked about technology and the strategic plan? That
This
they
was-
all got, cause I noticed a couple of them didn't have there wasn't like from last, we didn't have any data from before.
The thing with the technology one, so a super exciting thing is our last 2 years of data showed massive growth, both in our kids and in our teachers' ability to utilize technology in learning. And so the questions the last 2 years were very base level. So for the teachers, it focused on their technology proficiencies, so the Washington Educator technology proficiencies, and then their ability to just design blended learning experiences using Avid's 4A's framework. Well, last year's data was we were in the 90s for everything at the end of last year. So then it was like the decision was made, we're ready to go to the next level. And so this year, the technology questions shifted to be more about the skills for using the technology to build skills for kids. And again, we tied it to that strategic plan metric. We had the strategic plan metric focused on the 4 C's of communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and creativity. Another hard one for us to measure. That's now worked into this because we can now look at the instructional technology data to guide that metric.
And again, I think that's exactly what the purpose of this is every time being able to, just hone in and to make changes. So to make sure that we're collecting the data that we want and we can, like you said, then target intervention. So again, I don't have anything else. I just wanna thank you and your team again for this great work. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for anyone listening at home, we take all these very seriously. So when you get those surveys, there are a lot of eyes on that data, and this is a great opportunity for you to let us know how we can continue to support. So please fill out those surveys. Next one will come out for families late April.
And Jeremy will begin the process of herding everyone into the survey. Thank you, Jeremy. It's an outstanding report.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Jeremy, again, I love the fact that we get 2 surveys a year in the same cohort, because I didn't like that before, we basically surveyed once a year and they left.
I call that a checkbox survey.
Yeah, and then something from last meeting, you weren't here, but he's coming up in our school connections about the middle mark is counted as negative, but people just keep answering that. And I say, we all know that fine doesn't mean fine, so if there's any educational pieces that we can work on so that people realize what marking that really means, maybe not so much the kids, but the adults especially, I think that would probably help us going forward.
Yeah, I would agree completely. We do have this year, several of the teachers reached out and asked for access to all the survey questions, and so we have all that available for them. So I know that a lot of teachers are now starting to engage kids in dialogue about these questions to make sure that the kids really understand what we're capturing. But you're right, we absolutely need
That's
to do
easy
that.
to assume on a 5-mark scale that a 3 is neutral.
Mhm.
That's an easy assumption to make.
Yep.
But it's not, it's just not how this works. So making sure that we educate folks on that so that they realize 3 is gonna count negatively. And so if that's what you intend to report, absolutely report it. But if it's not, adjust accordingly.
Yeah, that's great information, actually. We'll
So
definitely-
are 3rd and 4th grade teachers encouraged to go over the questions with the kids so they're not just on their own reading and answering the questions?
Yeah, we've definitely encouraged them to engage the kids in the conversation about the questions. We haven't said, and there may be some classes that do this, we haven't said like, read it aloud as a class and then the kids answer as you go through, but we have definitely asked them to have conversations, let the kids know, clarify vocabulary or front load vocabulary even, depending on where they've been in that conversation.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our last item this evening is a field trip request from the North Kitsap High School Choir. They want to go to Canada, so there's the documentation. Again, this is a 2-step process for you to look at and then approve, and then they'll come back with final documents closer to the time and go through the process again. So just a heads up.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
All right, I think the next item is to go to exec session. I'm wondering if we could recess for 5 minutes first for a break. That would be okay.
Yes, the board will,
Or just say you can call recess for 5 minutes and we will then go into exec session from that recess.
okay. So the board will recess for 5 minutes, and then, the board will hold an executive session to discuss review of public employee per RCW 42.30.1101G, and is expected to last approximately 1 hour. Okay, thank you.
For those of you who are on Zoom, the Zoom window will stay open. My screen is going to log off. The screen that says Corey Henry will stay open, so the meeting will stay on while we are doing the executive session.